Hello everyone, it's Rob here. Listen, it's YouTube. You know what to do. Hit the bell and the thumbs up, right? Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye. When she's right, you gotta hand it to her. It is nice to have a powerful and based girl boss like Hillary. It's nice. I mean, it's good. It shows that she's capable of listening to criticism, doing self-criticism, more importantly, and coming to a different conclusion. You know, you got to respect that.
Must be a reckoning by the tech companies for the role that they play in undermining the information ecosystem that is absolutely essential for the functioning of any democracy. If you get to a point, and we are, if not there, very close to it, where you cannot have agreement on facts, on evidence, on truth, how does a democracy make decisions? And what we've got in the tech world on social media platforms is an algorithm-driven conspiracy rabbit hole that...
Good thing Hillary Clinton's allies in the liberal media establishment are always completely truthful about everything, because that way she has tons of credibility to make these arguments. She's got a ton of credibility to make these arguments about the tech company misinformation, because as we all know, no one in the Democratic Party establishment or in their media allies would ever be not truthful about stuff. So that's how she has a ton of credibility to mention these kinds of issues. So I'm with her as well. Thank you.
That people are enticed to go down and then addicted, because it is like watching constant car crashes. You cannot turn away. And as someone who has been...
were you talking about the social media or your 2016 presidential campaign? Sorry.
You cannot turn away. And as someone who has been accused of practically everything you could possibly imagine, I know how powerful this is. I mean, outrageous falsehoods which fuel a sense of alienation. And yet the algorithm-driven, advertising, profiting social media platforms find it, I guess, very difficult to break themselves of that addiction. So in fact, they don't. And it's going to be up to governments, and I would even hope some global rules, but let's start with governments, to try to rein in the disinformation on the social media platforms. It certainly plays to Russia's interests, but also to other malign actors. China is creating the most effective surveillance state in the history of humanity.
Imagine if the United States surveilled people.
Largely been
My gosh, how terrifying.
Produced in the West. And they are able to scan tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people's faces, keep track of people, hold them accountable for what they consider good deeds or bad deeds.
Can you imagine? Imagine if the United States held people accountable for what they considered good or bad deeds. That's fucked up that China would do that. Oh, and because of this capitalist system, there's a degree of separation between the state and the tech companies that do this exact same shit. There's one degree of separation between the US government and like Amazon or Facebook or all these things that do literally the exact same fucking thing that you're talking about, or Google. But because there's this degree of separation, they can kind of wash their hands of it and be like, see, we don't surveil people. We don't do any of that, even though we know for a fact that they do because of things like the Snowden leaks. But it's this kind of like fake way of pretending that they're not involved in all the exact same shit.
It's quite astonishing. It is
indeed.
Brave New World, 1984.
It's exactly like Animal Farm, 1985. Oh my gosh.
That we are going to see the Chinese people constantly surveilled. And they are doing it in the name of the Chinese Communist Party to maintain control,
they've always I feel like the memo has gone out between everyone to now. You always have to say the Chinese Communist Party, right? Even the liberals are doing it, the conservatives and neocons. We're back in the Red Scare days, baby. You gotta love it. We're back in the Red Scare days. I guess that tells us that we're doing something right, I guess. Because if the Red Scare means that they are scared of something, right? They're doubling down on all this anti-communist shit. they because they can kind of see what's coming on the horizon, right? So I guess we got to, even though it's kind of fucked up and a little bit scary that we're going into this Red Scare era, the new Cold War era, it does kind of say that, like, it shows like where they see how things are going. We can take kind of comfort in that a little bit before we all get shipped off to camps for dissidents and political radicals and stuff like that.
To squash dissent, to punish anyone who steps out of line, and reward those who don't. So you've got these two extremes. You've got a kind of anarchic, anything goes ecosystem where the worst lies and the craziest conspiracy theories and the most horrible, hateful accusations can be made, and no one's responsible for anything. And then you've got the very tightening down, using technology to control a huge nation, and others will follow the Chinese model. So we really do have to figure out the best ways to address this. I'd love to see the UK think of how best to do it under your system. I hope that we will get something out of Congress.
I just noticed that this fucking guy's name is Lord Haig. That's kind of fitting.
Congress and the Biden administration, because this is a train that is out of control.
Yeah, it's definitely out of control. I would definitely much rather make an alliance with the Conservative Party in the UK and Boris Johnson. That definitely sounds like a better future for everybody if we do that.
There is such a continuing anxiety about upsetting the Chinese. And there are two big reasons for that. One, Henry Kissinger mentioned maybe some unintended consequence of war down the road somewhere. But also the economic
I already ate
issue.
the burger, yes.
And here, it's time we
here's the part.
Recognize that we need to rebuild our own supply chains, even if that requires a certain level of subsidized industrial productivity. We cannot be dependent on the Chinese market. It's not only bad for our economies, it is bad for our geopolitical strategic interests. Look at what happened with the lack of personal protective equipment or certain pharmaceutical ingredients when the pandemic hit. We were at the mercy of China. Well, we cannot let that continue, and we need to work together across the Atlantic to figure out how we're going to take back production.
It's not going to happen, Hillary.
Will it be as low cost? Of course
it's not going to happen.
And how do we...
You're all addicted. All of us. We're all addicted to that cheap crap, aren't we? Try to tell Americans now, we're going to take back the means of production. And it just means that all the prices at Walmart are going to go up because now we're not getting this cheap labor from China and elsewhere in the developing world. See how Americans react to that. I wonder what they're going to say when you're like, what does she say here? Will it be low cost? Of course not. I'm sure that's going to go over really well with this good old citizens of the United States of America.
It's not. And how do we set our tax systems and other arrangements so that there are incentives for our businesses to return to Western democracies to produce things? And I would add that more and more businesses are seeing that unless they are low-cost producers of retail clothing, which, probably will never come back for all the obvious reasons, but if they are producing
what are those
anything
reasons?
more sophisticated, increasingly the Chinese government, through coercion, through unfair regulation, through enforced partnerships or royalty agreements,
Hillary.
is slowly stealing that intellectual property anyway. So I do think that we've got to get smarter about how we deal with the economic.
It's too late, Hillary.
For people who say, that disrupts the market. China has disrupted the market. China is not a free market economy. We tried. We let them into the World Trade Organization. We sent our businesses over there. We made trade deals. They are a controlled top-down economy.
That's right.
You will never compete and win against them.
And here's the line.
Unless you take back the means of production.
It is both based and poggers. So again, my history's not great. I'm trying to remember which US president it was that signed NAFTA and signed these trade deals that offloaded the industrial manufacturing to these developing nations such as China. I'm trying to remember who that was. It's escaping me. But she's got a point that was a bad move. People like Hillary can say this shit all they want. Like, they're fucked though. They can't. You're not going to take back the means of production. The manufacturer's not coming back. This was all done by design. And that's why I do kind of laugh a little bit at these suck dem Twitch streamers and YouTubers that go on and on about this, talking about China, going, oh, it's actually capitalist. So it's just as bad, right? America's bad and China's bad because it's capitalist too. Deng Xiaoping, he was a capitalist, he was a neoliberal. So it's all just as bad. It's kind of hard to argue with the logic of the economic reforms that Deng Xiaoping made when you're seeing now the result. It's turning them into the top global economy. It's turning them into the top global superpower. You have American elites fucking like filling their diapers over it. It's hard to argue with the logic of like making these reforms. It's hard to argue with the idea that in the mid-'80s, they made this decision to start making everything that America needs. They saw what happened in Vietnam. They saw what happened in Korea. They were like, we're going to work with the Americans. We're going to start participating in this kind of global economic system. We're going to manufacture everything that America needs. So they're not going to be able to then like invade us or isolate us or sanction us because we're going to make ourselves completely invaluable to them. And now it's like now they're on the verge of overtaking America as the number one economy in the world, as the number one global superpower. And you have Americans being like, no, not like this. No, we wanted you to participate in capitalism, but not like this. This is not good. You're laughing. China's owning the empire and you're laughing. Yeah, well, that is kind of what is happening. We should probably consider the fact that China has our means of production before we start a war with them. That's it. That's why, even though we are getting into this new Cold War situation, it's not going to play out like the last one because they've made these moves that have made it fucking impossible to like economically isolate them in that way. Bleep blomp then, that's a good point. Literally, it's like the opium war, except they were like, we're going to get them addicted to $5 t-shirts. It's true. And you can make these arguments, and as I'll always preface this, I'll always mention this, that doesn't mean that I believe China's like a perfect place, or that they don't commit human rights violations, or they don't have elements of like this surveillance state, or all these things people say. Sure, they do. Sure. Still, though, I think if you look at the history, the modern history of the United States and the U.S.-led empire and where that's led us, it's got a pretty fucking abysmal record. And I do kind of support them being supplanted as the lone global superpower. I think it's going to be a positive development for everybody. So it's funny. It's funny to see them now being like, now realizing what's happened. Like, it really seems like the realization has come home in the last 2 years. And that's why we've seen the rhetoric about China ramp up so significantly. Like, was this even on anyone's radar in like 2018? You had Donald Trump always talking about China, and it was like a joke. It was like a meme. And just in the last year or two, it has ramped up so significantly amongst not just conservatives, but like liberals as well are getting on board with this. There's a huge campaign to now like turn people against this. And you can tell the reason why. The reason why is because they realize that they're losing. Good clip from Abby Martin about this. I love Abby. I got to bring her on the stream.
My brother said this on the last, people should check out Media Roots Radio. It's our podcast, but he said, we are Jeffrey Dahmer on steroids times 1,000,000. That is what the U.S. government has done just in the last 20 fucking years.
Right.
How many millions of people's blood is on this government's hands? How many tens of millions of people have been expelled from their homes, maimed, lives destroyed? And you have the fucking audacity to talk about China? To talk about China when you actually know nothing about this country. You are ignorant of their politics, their culture, their economic system. The vast majority of people hammering and harping about China constantly are completely ignorant about what's going on in China, and they don't give a shit about their own government. Look in your own backyard, fix your own backyard, because this government's a genocidal entity that has just total bloodlust, and we need to stop it. Because I mean, how many countries are under the boot of U.S. empire and imperialism, right? I mean, look at the bases around the world, 700 plus bases, tens of millions of people affected by this. It's just absolutely beyond the pale. 1 million dead in Iraq alone. Look at Syria. Look at Libya. Look at the coups in Latin America. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't stand it. It's like, yes, I wish that I could do something to just wave a magic wand and end all oppression all around the world. But guess what I can do? I'm an American citizen. I'm an empire baby. And what I can do is actually resist my government, because all of the people around the world who are living under the boot of imperialism are looking to us saying, what the hell is wrong with you? Can you please form some sort of movement to stop your government from oppressing?
And a lot of what passes for like a left movement, that like what she's talking about, are a lot of these like Twitch streaming soak Dems who are like, yeah, China's just as bad. And that's the extent of their fucking analysis. Yeah, that was really good stuff. Thanks for sharing that clip. I love Abby. I'm going to reach out to Abby about getting her on the stream, because that would be great. I've talked to her on my podcast before, and it was awesome. And it's crazy. Like, if you were in the stream the other day, on Wednesday, you've seen like the response that I've gotten. Sorry, I keep hitting this. Sorry. You've seen the response that I've gotten just from my very lukewarm take about China, just being like, I'm not participating in this new Cold War thing. I don't doubt that they do some bad stuff, but I also think that the stuff that we do is a lot worse, and maybe we should focus on that. That's basically my like extremely lukewarm take about this. And I have people immediately who like come into the stream and just start like accusing me of like genocide denial and all this kind of crazy shit, when we're living in the empirical core, who has just been responsible for so much fucking violence and brutality. Like Abby was saying, just in the last 20 years, but, you know, in the last 50, 60, 70 years overall, brutal, which no one can even touch. No one can even come close to touching that. And because I say I want to focus on that more than the human rights abuses of the evil empire of China, I have people coming in here to the stream and accusing me of like thinking genocide is good. There's a ton of people that will like scream at you for simply pointing out that China's managed to develop trade relations with the global south without bombing civilians and destroying hospitals. Yeah, and or the extent of it will be like, oh yeah, so they're doing imperialism too. You know, we did colonialism and then neocolonialism, and imperialism, and now they're doing the exact same thing with Belt and Road. And it's just like, we try to point out the ways that these are like incredibly different, and people are like, but that's tanky. It's tanky to say that. It's tanky to say, like, I think the US has done a bad job of being the lone global superpower over the last 70 years, and I actually support them being supplanted and replaced in that role. And I think it's going to be better for humanity when there's a different country that assumes that role. That's tanky to think that. To me, the extremist position is, let's keep letting the United States government and their partners in the Canadian government and the UK and the other Western alliances, let's keep letting us be in charge, because we've done such a fucking great job. We've done such a fucking great job at this over the last 70 years. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing that. That to me is the extremist position. That to me is the genocide denying position, considering the amount of blood we have on our hands, based on our foreign policy over the last couple of decades. It is like, that to me is the extremist position, that we should keep doing that. We should support. You know, the US, I criticize it. The US doesn't always get it right. We make some mistakes, but it's still the best place in the world to live. It's the best place. It's the best country in the world. And we just need to argue and have a few more minor little social democratic tweaks in our government, and then we're going to be better. Then we can push them left. We can push the neoliberals left. That's what we'll do. That, to me, is the extremist position. Abby looks... I'm talking, and Abby's just like, you serious? You serious, bro? America could have easily kept social democracy and stayed on top like Europe. That's the kind of funny thing about capitalists, too, and how it's like a death cult, and how, like, they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves but to slay the golden goose. They had the golden goose in the post-World War II period. All you had to do is keep up those, like, higher tax rates, keep up that modest social democracy, and they would still just be cruising along. There would be a way less inequality. People would be way happier. People would not be out protesting. Oh, that's all they had to do, but they can't. They can't fucking do it. They've got to kill that golden goose. They can't control themselves. That's why these capitalists, they have a sickness. They have like a mental illness. This greed, you know? They can't fucking control themselves, even if it's to their own destruction, or to everyone's destruction, in terms of like the planet's climate and everything like that. They'd literally rather kill themselves and kill all of us in this kind of global suicide pact than just have a modest social democracy and pay slightly more taxes and still be fabulously wealthy. They can't fucking control themselves. This is why we're going to be doing them a favor when we take their money away. This is why we want to take away their funds and take away this thing, because it's like doing something terrible to their minds. All right, that's the end of the video, everyone. Thank you for watching it. If you haven't already, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell, leave a comment or whatever, or don't, and I'll talk to you soon, okay? All right, bye.